One important concept we worked a lot with when we were learning assembler and instruction sets in Little Man Computer was this idea of a branch. And we used branching in our working class to actually take a high-level programming construct like a conditional or a loop and break it down into assembler to see exactly what that would look like as far as what was compiled by your compiler into machine instructions. And what we didn't really discuss much, though, that I want to talk about now is how you would actually do something like a function call. So there is usually a instruction that would be called a call or something similar depending on your instruction set that works similar to a branch in the instruction set. But the difference between a call and a branch is that there's actually a counter that's saved as far as where, when this thing is done, it should go back to. Now, this could be saved in like a register or in main memory, and it usually is dealt with in one of these two places, but the way that we save this is usually into a construct we call a stack. Now, you might remember from your data algorithms class that a stack is a last in first out mechanism, right? So when I push something into the stack, if I want to pull off the stack, if I want, or pop out, sorry, I would take out the last thing that I pushed in, right? So in this example here, if we had these numbers on the stack, the 153, 299, 701, and 428, and we push the 17 on, and then we push a 505 on, we end up with this data stack here. And then if we pop, we end up getting the 505 off first and then the 17, right? And if we popped again, we get the 153, and then again we get the 299, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And if we push something new on over here, then it would go on top of whatever was last in the stack. So this item works really well for the scenario we want to handle, which is how do we maybe call to a different place in our program, but then have a built-in mechanism to return to it. But then beyond that, beyond doing it just once, because we were doing it with things like, having maybe a conditional branch and a branch absolute, right? Where we would, have a mechanism to keep calling back to ourselves and keep in a loop, but then we'd have some condition to break out of it or something. But here what we really want to do is call from one piece of code into another. And we might not have finished everything that we were doing in the original part of the code. So when we complete that call to the second part of the code, we want to come back to where we were and then continue. And we also want to keep in mind that code can be recursive. So you can have instances where functions either call themselves and keep building up that stack, or they're calling deeper into a function stack, right? So let's take a look here at what this little snippet of code is doing to kind of see how this plays out. So in this example, we're at instruction at line 305. Our program counter is 305. We're running some instruction. 306, we run some instruction. And then we get to 307, which is a call to 425. So at that point, what a call instruction does is it takes the next line number, so in this case 308, and it pushes it onto a stack. Now, that stack is usually kept in main memory. This says saves program counter somewhere. It does vary depending on the platform, but for now, let's just assume that we're pushing it into main memory. So 308 gets pushed onto the stack, and then we execute the call, which is basically at this point a branch absolute, to the particular line number that it wants. So we change the program counter to 425, and now we're in the subroutine. So this is the function now that you've called, right? So the first thing I do is whatever instruction is there, and I keep going until I hit the return. So when you're coding a function, you code away of all your lines, and eventually you have a return, right, in most programming languages. And that return now sends us back to whatever was on the top of the stack. So we look to our stack and we see, okay, well, we had 308 here. So we pop that off the stack, put it into our program counter, and now we're going to return to our original calling program, the original function that we were running, and that's going to keep on going now. Let's look at a more kind of complex example that involves a little bit of recursion. So here in this first area, this goes 1, 2, 3, 4 over here. So here in the first section we're on line 55, so the program counter is at 55. We call to 70. So we know from before we take 56, we push it into the stack, we send ourselves to line 70. 70 is the beginning of our routine, so we're going through that. And now we're looking at the world in example 2 here. We get to line 75, which is another call. So this is some kind of recursive function where it's calling back to itself. So this function now calls itself. Now at this point we take line 76 and we push it into the stack. So we go back to line 70 and we've added 76 to our stack, and we repeat this process. Now here's the trick. We repeat this process until something changes effectively. Now we're going to have it change right now so we don't have to fill the stack up. But let me talk through an example of this. So if you've ever tried writing a factorial algorithm, a good way to accomplish that is with a recursive algorithm. So you can have a function that calls itself and basically sends whatever number you started with. So say you started with 3, you can call the next function with n minus 1, or whatever was passed in originally, call that n minus 1. So you give it a 3 originally, it calls itself with a 2, and then it calls itself with a 1, and then as you come back up the stack, it's basically multiplying the values by each other as it goes back up. So how did it get to the end? Well, it can look at the number that's passed in and say, is this a 1, or less than a 1, or however you want to do that. And then at that point, you can basically not issue this call back to yourself, right? That's your signal that, okay, you've recursed in as far as you need to go. Now you're going to unfold and come back out, right? So what we're looking at here in number 3 is that we didn't do this call back to ourselves. We actually got past that part. So what happens there, right? So somewhere in this code, there was a check to see that some condition happened. And because that condition happened, we called ourselves out. We call a return. We pop the 76 off the stack. We put it into our program counter. We finish out this program. And then we come back to pop out the 56. We go to the 56 and we return back out to the original function, and which is now being shown up here, and then we can complete and head on down the path, right? So that's the basic idea here. We use the stack to keep track of when you go from one function into another, into another, into another. Every time you do that, you're adding a new kind of program counter that you're going to call back to into the stack so that you can get back out. It doesn't have to be recursive. This example shows it with a little bit of a recursive style algorithm. But if you consider that you have a main function, let's consider Java or C, you have a main function. The main function, oh, hi Belle. The main function can call into another function. Belle, come on down. And then that function might call into a second function, and the second function might call into a third function. This might not be recursive, right? And then when the third function returns, you still have to finish the second function. And then the second function returns, it finishes the first function, which goes back to the main function, right? So either way, it doesn't have to be recursive in nature. The function doesn't have to be calling itself. This is just an example using that consideration. But anytime you call from one function into another, you're utilizing this stack. Also consider, I believe everyone here has programmed in Java and SD1. I'm sure you've seen your fair share of a stack trace. What you're looking at when you view a stack trace is basically the compiler, well, the runtime really, going through and grabbing this stack and regurgitating it back to you so that you can see exactly which function you were in when the problem happened, and then all the calls that led up to it, right? Because if you've ever looked at a stack trace, that's exactly what you see. You see that, you know, maybe it says that you had a null pointer exception that was caused at, right? And it shows you the line of code. And then if you follow that back up, you can see that, okay, well, it was called from this line of code in this other function, from this line of code in this other function, right? And all it's doing is it's taking these program counters here, actually decrementing them effectively, because it's showing you the code that you called, not the code that you would have went back to, and showing you that whole path that you followed to get where you are.